Morning, everyone. Welcome to the October 23rd Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. Today on the agenda, we have a couple items. First is the approval of the October 9th, 2025 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes. And you know, I don't have my usual script here. I forgot the housekeeping items. Number one, if anybody wishes to speak to an item on the Zoning Board of Adjustment agenda today, there are speaker request forms on the table over by the left wall. Please fill out excuse me, the request with the agenda number that you wish to speak to and hand it to the staff seated over there. And if anybody has a cell phone or other electronic device, if you would turn it to silent or turn it off, we would appreciate it. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. Item number one on the agenda is the approval of the October 9th Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes. All right. Karen made the motion to approve those meeting minutes, and Vince seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion to approve the meeting minutes? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number two.
Good morning, Chair, Zoning Board of Adjustment. Today we're going to be talking about a variance for fence height in a second front yard. So this is a corner lot out in Elks Country Estates. There were a number of properties that installed fences that didn't meet the setback requirements. So while a 6-foot fence would not require a building permit, they do still have to comply with the setbacks. So I'll just give you a rundown of what this area looks like. It is zoned low-density residential 2. The area is primarily developed with single-family homes. There are a number of corner lots in this subdivision as well. They tend to be a little bit larger than some of the other lots, but with the fence regulations and setbacks on the second front yard, essentially we call it the side abutting right away, they do lose a bit of the property when it comes to their backyards, just because they are on corner lots. So aligns with future land use. We're an urban neighborhood. This is kind of located off of Elkville Road, just east of where it meets Campbell Street. Again, this is Elks Country Estates. The nearest kind of transportation. And I'll note too, there is a stop sign at this intersection as well, while it is a local residential street. This is the site plan for the property. The yellow line is showing where the 10-foot setback should be. So for the second front yard, the requirement is either if it's within, like on the property line, or up to 10 feet, it needs to be 4 feet in height. At that 10-foot line, you can be up to 6 feet. Whereas the true front yard, where they're addressed off of and where the house faces and the access for the garage is, this one does need to meet the full setback and be 4 feet in height. But there is a little more leeway on the setback here. But you'll notice with these, it does create kind of this weird strip of land that people have had trouble landscaping. Sometimes it gets graveled, sometimes it's just grass and you have to mow this little strip of land here. So when we looked at this variance, we looked at it from the code point of view as well as the site. So typically with variances like this, we're looking, does the site have any special circumstances? Is there topographical issues? Is there something that's limiting them that gives them a hardship, so that there's a reason to grant the deviation from the code because it's warranted? This is a pretty standard lot. Again, the corner lot does give it some level of a special circumstance, but there are other corner lots in the area that have complied with the regulations. They could cut it down to 4 feet. There are personal reasons that the applicant does not desire to do that, so they just submitted a variance to see if they could get the 6 feet in height. In looking at this, since there weren't any necessarily special circumstances, it's not necessarily minimal adjustment, we started looking into the history of fence heights and the requirements for them in the city. The code actually changed around 2013, where fences used to be regulated in Title 15, the building code. And building had an exception process that could go through council to grant exceptions like this one, where there's no site triangle issue, there's no easement issues, there's other fences in the area that are similar, so they would grant an exception in this case. In 2013, there was an ordinance that moved it to Title 17 in zoning. At that point in time, the option to deviate from that code through the zoning code is always the variance process. There is an administrative exception, but it's only up to 20% of the rule. And so the variance process is much more stringent than the exception process that was previously used. So we considered that in looking at this variances, was that the right move when we did move the fencing requirements to the zoning code? Should it really be under the same stringent kind of stipulations as the variance? Because not a lot of variants would meet the criteria in this case. This is a great visual of that. So just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So then we're talking about, is this impacting the neighborhood? We've gotten comments. There's some neighbors that say, no, it looks nice, it's well kept. It is really close to the sidewalk. There's some, there's nothing right there on the side, but at the same time, it's not really negatively impacting the neighborhood. It is out of that site triangle again for the stop sign intersection, as well as the driveway here. A lot of neighbors in this area do have this style of fence as well. And the lots that don't have the corner, the double front yard, they get to use, do this on either side of their yard as well. So, yeah, this is the one I'll land on. So when staff was looking through the history of it, we kind of questioned, should there really be that 10 foot? Is there a situation where we could do it or allow something like this through the code, but also account for the site triangle that needs to be accounted for, which is in code? They would have to meet that as well, and any easements. And so they would still have to come to us, look at it, and determine whether the fence can be placed in that lot line. But we kind of would also like some feedback on that today, and I think in the Zoning Board of Adjustments response to how you would like to act on this proposal would help give us information to see if that standard is worth changing. The 10 foot for the second front yard, is it necessary? So with that, we have left this up to the Zoning Board of Adjustment to determine whether or not this location is appropriate for the 6 foot fence, and in telling that, staff would likely pursue an ordinance amendment to adjust the zoning code to allow that 6 foot fence height in the second front yard along the property line.
Vicki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when looking at this, you can see that in addition, there is a stop sign there. It is not impacting the traffic. They're going to stop. They can see traffic coming from all directions at that intersection itself. One of the things that we've experienced for those that are living on a corner lot, when they put that fence 10 foot back, that's a huge encroachment into many backyards. We have a lot of lots that don't have real big backyards. And then it becomes a maintenance issue. A lot of them don't want to take the lawnmower out and go down the sidewalk to hit that 10 foot strip. So then code enforcement gets called, and then they put rock down in that area, and then the weeds grow through it. And so it seems like we need to be more sensitive to what benefits the property owner while still protecting the public. And it appears to us that if we did an ordinance amendment that would say that when your fence on a corner lot, that side lot abutting a street, does not encroach into a site triangle, does not impact drainage or a utility, then we should allow it at 6 feet. And in this variance, we see that it doesn't adversely impact the neighborhood. And I think it is a minimum adjustment necessary in order for the property owner to truly benefit and have access to the full backyard. So with that, we leave it up to you for the final decision. And I do want to note that we did have our traffic engineer look at this, but he happens to be the applicant as well. And he is in the audience, but we just wanted to disclose that. And we would have brought this forward in a similar fashion, regardless of the applicant. We've seen a few of these, and it just seems like every time when there's not a hardship to the neighborhood, they shouldn't have to get the variance. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. Haven?
Well, thank you. That's putting a lot of responsibility on us, but I think we can handle it, hopefully. A couple questions. How we got to this place. Apparently, the fence was constructed and then didn't meet the code.
Thank you for asking. So I did want to address the code enforcement issues with this as well. This area had a few complaints on fences. A number of them actually comply. So we sent a letter out to a couple of neighbors that had this same situation where they had a 6-foot fence within that 10-foot on the second front yard. A few of them were able to comply. One cut it down, one moved it, one asked before they installed it, and so they were able to place it within the 10-foot. So there is, I will recognize there's a bit of animosity here that this one is coming forward as a variance. With that said, the letters that went out were not clear that the variance process was an option when it comes to complying with the setbacks. And code enforcement had kind of asked property owners, like, yes, you're not meeting them, let's wait and see what happens. Some already took action and went through that process as well. The applicant in this case started asking around City Hall more. Unfortunately, building services was handling it instead of planning, which kind of goes back to that. It used to be in the building code and they had a letter. And so once planning got involved, we acknowledged there is a variance process to be able to pursue asking for the height increase to meet the code requirement.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I guess that maybe kind of explains, or my concern here is that, yeah, we really don't know what the rules are, and maybe I guess that's what the process is, and maybe we can go forward and get something a little more definite so the homeowners do know what they can do and what they can't do.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
And that's exactly why we're here. And we're having this discussion outside of just this application. I do want to point out that we do have letters that we've received from neighbors that are in support of the fence. They like it. They like that when they're walking down the sidewalk, they're not seeing the activities in the backyard. It is unfortunate that there were those that did cut the fence down or move it, and that was on us. When code enforcement sent out the letters, we always have to give the property owner the full avenue of what their options are. And we failed to note, come forward for a variance. We've granted similar variances in many other neighborhoods when, again, it doesn't encroach into the site triangle and it doesn't impact drainage and utilities. And so knowing that we've had this kind of debacle go on out there, we believe that it's time we do an ordinance amendment and we make it permissive to do this. Most property owners, they call our department and say, do I need a building permit for a 6-foot fence in my residential lot? And they get the answer no, and they build a fence. And no one's telling them, you can have it, but not in these locations. They might say you can't have a 6-foot fence in your front yard, but that discussion about this is a corner lot many times gets missed. So knowing that we've added to this over the years, in order to ensure that when it doesn't negatively impact, our proposal is that we want to do the ordinance amendment. Getting back on track with what we're here to do today is specific to this property. And again, knowing if we apply the same criteria, no site triangle issues, no impact to drainage and utilities, minimal adjustment, not adverse to the neighborhood, does the Zoning Board of Adjustment support this variance?
And the other issue is, as you brought up, is this site triangle. I assume this photo that's up on the screen now is the residence that we're speaking about?
Yes, this is the residence.
So I guess my question is, okay, then how far this way could that fence be along the side yard? Is there a specific definition on this site triangle, or how is that determined?
So in this case, and I will defer to Todd, but in this case, because it is a stopped intersection, that fence could have protruded significantly further towards that front lot line. But let's say that stop sign wasn't there, and if you could go back to the previous picture, the one you, there you go. Todd, if you could just explain site triangle.
Todd?
Yeah, so the site triangle, as Vicky said, would apply if there was not a four-way stop, essentially. Since there's a four-way stop, I think it's like 70 foot in each direction, or it might even be 50 foot. We don't typically ever have a site triangle issue with the four-way stop. It's always on an intersection where there's through traffic going 25 miles per hour, or from driveways.
Haven, do you mind if I pop in here? Just on site triangle, do we ever consider that driveway in the back? I mean, because the fence at that point blocks pedestrian and traffic view from people trying to exit that driveway. Sorry,
Yes, site triangles do apply to driveways. It's measured 15 feet from the through lane.
Okay.
So basically from I guess on that picture, from the edge of the asphalt, and that fence is right near 14 or 15 feet back. And so since the driveway is offset from there isn't a site triangle issue based on that 15-foot requirement. It's very close,
okay.
but it works.
I interrupted you, Haven.
No problem. I guess the only comment then would be that there seems to be some variance with the site triangle depending on the type of intersection at the corner. And I guess that I'm not ready to make any specific recommendations at this time, but I just note that would be some issue that would need to be discussed if we wanted to do any modification to the ordinance.
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
So whenever we have development coming forward, whether it's a fence or an actual structure, we submit these to Public Works, and either the development review team, which you have Todd here today, or the city's traffic engineer. Sometimes we go out in the field, and Matt's joined me several times out in the field when we've had similar complaints along alleys with fences, and he makes the determination if it's in the site triangle or not. So again, if the regulation is that it can't encroach into a site triangle, we have to look at every situation individually, and that's what we do.
Eric Hikus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have three things. The first one is I think there's kind of a standing joke about planning and zoning sometimes, then that's large garages get approved and tall fences get denied. So I think this may be time to put that in the rear view mirror. I don't have any issue with the 6-foot fence. I never have on the majority of projects. The one change that a 6-foot fence has between a 4 and a 6 is it pretty much eliminates any kind of human interaction over the fence. There's no conversation that happens on the front yard that somebody is peeking over, and that sort of boulevard feel, the old City Beautiful movement thing where people are talking to the person whose home is there. So, but this 6, I think it's time for an ordinance change. I do. And then site triangles, for most of us, no fences should be in the site triangles at all. Generally between 30 inches and 8 feet, you want a clear zone that you can see through. So I would say no fence in a site triangle, because in 30-inch fence is kind of funny. That's just a little cute little dog fence. But so I would be in support of the ordinance change. And I'm really glad that we're having this conversation. I think this individual who didn't really follow the rules is maybe going to be a fortunate soul to get this exception or variance. And usually I say if that's the rule, let's deny it. But since we are now talking about the rule, I think we might make an example and then move forward with this ordinance. Thank you.
Alicia?
Thank you, and thanks, Eric. I feel like A follow-up, I wonder, in addition to thinking about this variance and a code amendment, is do we have to make the code amendment based on this variance, or thinking about what the intent of it is in addition to, you know, sight lines and triangles? So could the fence, if we were going to make an amendment, could it be back a few feet? If that walkability and neighborhood interaction and whatnot is a consideration, I do think it changes the character a little bit when you're walking down the street. It feels like maybe you're walking more down an alley rather than a neighborhood. I'm not sure how much that necessarily matters in thinking about the amendment, but I might think there might be somewhere between the property line and 10 feet going forward. So potentially granting this variance, but if we're thinking about an amendment, not only basing that thought on this particular individual's, circumstance. So I would think maybe somewhere in the middle for the 6 feet, but I don't have a problem with the 6-foot fence, I think, in general.
Thanks, Alicia. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric, I really like the comment about the neighborhood. And I think sometimes when 6-foot fences are put up, it does dissolve that feeling of we're a neighborhood. That would be the concern I would have. The other thing is, if we change this for the long term, I wonder if how hard it will be to really control the sight triangles and all the things that are going on if we make a long-term change. I'm not sure that because of the neighborhood feel and the sight triangles and some of the things that I've seen on fences that are 6 foot, it just feels not very neighborly, I guess is the best way to put it. And that's my concern.
Mr.
So.
Chair,
Vicky?
just a point of clarification. So we're only talking about allowing the 6-foot fence in the backyards, not front yards. So when you're walking down the street, on every block, you've got corner lots. But for the most part, many people don't put up privacy fences. They're expensive. And so if you're not doing a privacy fence, then the chain link fence, if you're even allowed to have a fence, some subdivisions don't allow them through the homeowners association. But you can kind of see from the picture that Jessica has there, down the street, you do get that neighborhood feel. And if your neighborhood's like my neighborhood, when we're out in the front yard, everyone's coming and going. Many of us have porches, we sit and we visit. We go in the backyard, and that's our time of privacy with our family. Some of us have small children, we're letting them play out there unattended. We want them protected. And so that's the whole purpose behind why we allow that taller fence in the backyard. Just getting to how do we preserve that neighborhood and community feel. We would not change the regulations so anyone could fence out their front yard.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the fact that Eric brought this idea up about neighborhoods, because that's when I saw the pictures in the property, it's the first thing I noticed was that fence is it's huge, and it just made me feel like that's not neighborly, as everybody has said already, and I think that the variance needs, or the rules need to be changed. I think we need to do a different way of fixing these kinds of things. And I understand the people wanting to have privacy in their backyard, but when you have a corner lot, your backyard is not just your backyard, because the second side of your house, it still looks like a front yard to a lot of people, because you've got all that expanse of that yard in there. And I think this just blocks a view of the whole neighborhood to me, and I'm not saying that I'm against this particular property, but I don't know if if it had a fence that had some openings in it or something that made it not seem like a big wall, that would be better. And I don't know if you can even do that as an ordinance amendment, but that's just part of the feeling that I have, that it just is, I wouldn't want to live next door to that just because of that. I would want to be able to visit my neighbors and that kind of stuff. So that being said, like I said, I don't disagree with having this be okay. It's just when we look at the ordinance amendments, see what else we can do to not make it quite such a block. Thank you.
Todd, did you have another comment to make?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Eric's comment on the site triangle. Per the city ordinance, it's 3.5 feet. And so any additional height from 4 foot to 6 foot, it does not change anything with site triangle requirements. They'll be in place regardless of the height. Yeah, so that's what the city ordinance requires already.
All right. Haven?
Thank you. What is currently allowed then, again, looking at this photo that's up on the screen, in the front yard and the side yard, in this corner here, what type of fence is allowed currently?
It would be a 4-foot fence, so any kind of fence can be within that yard up to 4 feet. And then once you get to the setback, you can get up to 6. The true front setback is going to be greater. We have the rule of you can go 10 for the second front yard.
So in
So it
other
would take
words-
10 feet, that it has to be 4 feet in the front.
When you abut a street, your fence has to be 4 feet in height or set back 20 feet from that street right away. That's the current regulations.
All right, Mike Quasney?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you go back to the neighbors? That picture right there. Now, the problem with that is that now isn't that neighbor's front yard got a 6-foot fence?
No, their front yard is measured from their lot line to property pin to property pin. That is their side yard. They could have a 6-foot fence setting back outside of their front yard, that front setback. So this would be the property owner that we're talking about today. That's their rear lot line. That's allowed to be 6 feet, but it would have to set back 20 feet from the sidewalk that you see because of the adjacent street. So if you think of it from an internal lot to a corner lot, this property owner could put a 6-foot fence about where the garage is on his. He could tie into this one and put a 6-foot fence, which would still give him a little front yard, but it would give him privacy in his side and backyard.
I guess what I'm saying, though, is that to me, that looks like that's a 6-foot fence along the side of his front yard.
That's a correct statement. And as Todd noted, it is outside of the site, his site triangle to get in and out of his driveway.
Looks, I guess if I were backing out of there, I'd have some problems with it. So, and maybe this one isn't going to be a big problem, but if it sets a precedence, pretty soon we've got them everywhere, and that would be my concern. It just looks to me like we're allowing a 6-foot fence in a front yard.
And that's why we wanted the discussion today, to get everyone's input. So thank you, this is very helpful. We have a lot of things we have to think about as we bring something forward, but certainly we want to address the issue, and it might not be as clear-cut as I was hoping it would be. But great conversation, guys.
All right, Vince?
Well, thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with the community, building a community and having an openness to our neighbors. And when you're looking at this, yes, the side angle may be fine for that driveway. There's a 6-foot fence on a side yard on Elm Street between Minnesota and south of there. And when I look at that one, that fence doesn't butt up against a driveway on that side yard, nor does it conflict with anything on the front yard of a neighbor, because they happen to be on a corner lot. So, we thought about that long and hard before they put up that 6-foot fence, I'm sure, and how it doesn't affect that. Now, we've been talking about traffic going in and out of the street. Mike brought up the fact that this neighbor is going to have to back out of his driveway. The other thing that I've seen on sidewalks, walking around our neighborhoods, and I've noticed that there are strollers, so there are parents going up and down these sidewalks, and that would totally be hidden if somebody is walking there, especially with a child, one in the stroller, one on hand. I think we may be setting up a bad precedent on using this one as an example. If you were using the one I'm talking about on Elm Street between Minnesota and south of that, it's a different story. So this one seems a little bit tricky here for us.
Chip?
Thank you. This isn't fire department related, but some neighborhoods aren't happy neighborhoods, like we all want to paint a picture of. And I have, my neighborhood's happy, just for the record. And the 6-foot fence, if I had kids or very expensive dogs, somebody can reach over a 4-foot fence and grab the dog. And I have a neighbor that has expensive dogs, and he's concerned about that. So there's just something to think about there. I just throw it out there.
So I'm going to hop in here. We've seen a lot of these in the past 5 years or 10 years, however long it's been. And this one reminds me of City Springs in West Chicago. We saw a similar one there where a neighbor came in with the concern about backing out of their driveway. And here, I don't think the vehicle traffic is as threatening just due to the order of street. But this is on a downhill slope along that sidewalk, and that is where kids are going to hit or beginning to hit their top speed on a bike. And for me, I would like to see a 45 in that fence to provide more sight triangle for the sidewalk versus the street. I don't think that there's enough on that. That's just this situation, my opinion.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
One of the things that we may think about when we're looking at an ordinance amendment, and Vince called it out very clearly, when you have, I live in Vince's neighborhood too, by the way, when you have, on our block, it's split right down the middle, so this would be rear line, backyard line to backyard line. And that's different. This block is so long, it's one of those meandering blocks, so that you do have front yards mixed in with side and backyards. So that's something to think about when we're looking at the ordinance amendment. When you do have a backyard abutting a backyard, it makes it a whole lot easier when we're looking at changing the rules for everyone to allow that 6-foot fence on that side yard abutting a street. So thanks for pointing that out, Vince.
Todd?
Yeah, your comment on the pedestrians, we do have a pedestrian side triangle, we call it. It's basically a 10-foot by 10-foot triangle, and that driveway is just over 10 feet away from the fence, so it would meet that requirement as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Todd. I have a building off of West Boulevard, and I feel like I'm a super careful driver, and there's plenty of open sight there, and I still have had some close calls because I wasn't looking the right direction. Vince?
So just to clarify that, so if we're talking about the neighbor with the driveway that we're looking at right here, so if he wanted to put up a 6-foot, or she wanted to put up a 6-foot fence, they have to follow the side yard or front yard regulations there, or ordinances. And so this fence was put up, but that doesn't look like it would be a 6-foot between that driveway. That looks like that green grass area there, it belongs to the owner of the driveway.
Yeah, Todd just said that's 10 feet. Sorry.
That's 10 feet? Okay.
Let's go to this side. It's this property.
Well, so if the owner wanted to put up this fence and he can move it back 10 feet, the problem is that patch of grass there that goes on, has a potential to go unkept because of its inavailability to the landscaping process. Okay. I do think that if there was a side angle, though, that Eric was talking about, that 45 degrees, it would just make it much safer to me. If this was my 6-foot fence, I would want to provide that, but. Okay, thank you.
All right, tough issue here. Any other comments or questions on this?
Mr. Chair?
Vicki?
Just to point out your options, so you can deny the variance, list your criteria. You could approve the variance, again, you have to list the criteria. You could approve it in part and recommend that that 45-degree angle be implemented into the rear corner of the fence design. So those are 3 different things that you could do today.
All right. Well, we got quiet up here all of a sudden. Mike Gallagher?
To call the vote, I'll make the motion to approve the variance based on the minimum adjustment necessary, and it does not appear to be injurious to the neighborhood.
Okay. Is there a second to Mike's motion? Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Mike Kwasny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was nothing said about the 45-degree in your motion? Okay. Well, I will probably be voting against it without anything. I think we need to do something. I think, Eric, you brought up a good point. That kid that's driving down that sidewalk on his bike in a car backing up is it only takes one of those to be disastrous. So,
Mr. Chair, as a
Vicki?
reminder, any one of you who was not in support of that motion can make a substitute motion if it receives a second.
All right, Mike Kwasny.
okay, I guess when I would do a substitute motion that we address this with a 45-degree angle on that fence to allow better sight triangle from the neighbor's garage.
All right.
I'll second it.
Appreciate it, Vince.
Yep.
And approving the motion with the same criteria, though, that
Correct.
that Mike suggested, the minimum adjustment necessary and not injurious to the neighborhood.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the substitute motion is as Mike Kwasny stated and seconded by Vince. Eric Heikus, comments on that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Friendly discussion. The site triangle issues, I think we should probably visit those separately as well, in addition to this fence discussion we're having. Like my friend Mike Stanley and I, we grew up with kind of a universal CAD standard or universal design standards, and every one of these is different than what I think we're talking about 10 feet and 45 feet and this height and that, and I think maybe it's time to maybe take a more in-depth look at the site triangles and some of these requirements, but aside from this fence discussion and this ordinance change. And I'm not saying this should be part of the motion, I'm just saying that I think we've talked enough about site triangles and safety here that maybe that's warranted in another discussion. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. I believe Mike Gallagher's the no. Is there any others? So the motion carries with Mike Gallagher voting no. Mike, did I leave you on?
I just wanted to make a comment that I'm still concerned, and as we go forward, the neighbor Phil and the like the person next door, that driving out of their driveway, it's not a good situation, and I think it's really creating some problems in our communities that I don't know that we want. So,
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
I think the benefit of just having the open discussion in conjunction with actually reviewing a specific application, it's allowed us, and we've been sitting here kind of talking about it, it will approach us significantly different than what we thought going into it. There is a difference when you're allowing these types of fences when it's backyard to backyard versus backyard to front yard. And so we need to look at that and see what that design needs to look like. You kind of came up with a solution for today. It's an existing fence. The requirement to put that 45-degree angle on it so that we do have the safety of the pedestrians more than anything is an important, I think, feature that we'll work with the applicant on. But I don't know that that's the right solution for all of those situations, just to maintain that universal feel and look in our neighborhood. So, yeah, this won't be as easy as I thought it was going to be, but certainly great conversation. Thank you for the time that you put into it.
Alicia?
Just to follow up on your comment there, Vicky, I feel like even if, in the book, something's a backyard or a front yard, like you just mentioned, if you're walking on the street, whether it's classified as a back or a front yard, that feels like a front yard. So with the order, thinking through, how deep is the block and, what does injurious to the neighborhood mean and what's the goal for neighborhood character. So, yeah, I think that's good just to think through it before we just pass a ordinance, even if we think this makes sense for this individual. So, thank you.
All right, that was the last item on the zoning board of adjustment. I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
All right, Vince made the motion. Mike seconded that motion. Quasny? All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. We'll now commence the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for October 23rd, 2025. If any audience member wishes to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda, please grab a speaker request form from the table along the left wall and hand it to the staff seated over there. If anybody hasn't turned off their cell phones or turned them to silent, please do so now. Items 1 through 6 have been placed on the consent calendar today and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 3, 25 UR 030. Item 4, 25 PD 029. And item 5, 25 UR 029. The Rapid City Planning Commission's actions on these items are final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 6 that staff would like removed?
5 and 6, please.
Okay. Any items 1 through 4 that any planning commissioner would like removed? I think we caught the 2 that were on their list. Any items 1 through 4 that any audience member would like removed for separate consideration? The chair would then entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 4 in accordance with staff's recommendations.
Motion to approve items 1 through 4 in accordance with the staff's stipulations.
All right. Vince made the motion. Eric Heikus seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 5 is a conditional use permit to allow the construction of a Ronald McDonald House. We are so excited about this. It qualifies as a group home. This is a facility that will allow families that have children in the hospital they can stay there. Many of them will have children too. And we see these throughout the nation. It's exciting that Rapid City is finally getting one. We've asked to pull this from the agenda so that Mike Kwasny can abstain from the vote.
All right. Anybody need further information, or is there a motion out there?
I'll move approval with the stipulation.
Okay, Karen made the motion to approve the stipulations, and Haven seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries with Mike Kwasny abstaining. Item number 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 6 is a rezone from general commercial district to medium density residential district for property along East St. Louis Street. And we are recommending to approve this in conjunction with the planned development. It's in an area that does have some residential somewhat set away. There are existing residential on the property now. Really leans into what we just adopted in our updated comprehensive plan. We want to see more mixed-use type activity. It's also preserving some very affordable housing in this area of our neighborhood. The recommendation on the agenda is to approve in conjunction with the planned development designation, so we can always make sure that these properties are designed to ensure that the tenants are being considered and taken care of. We've asked that it be removed because Alicia is the applicant on this one, and she needs to abstain from the vote.
All right. Any more information needed on item 6? Comments?
I'll move approval with the stipulation.
Okay. Karen made the motion to approve the item number 6, the rezone with the planned development designation. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
All right. Vince seconded it, and comments? Vince?
Well, thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, and I'm glad Vicki pointed out it's because this has been in the planning for a while and the redoing. So is there any reason why we waited this long to do it or to bring it to this change? I don't know if Alicia can answer it or if Vicki wants to.
All right, Alicia. Please identify yourself once you're up at the microphone.
Hi, Alicia Ginsberg. Say the question one more time, Vince, why I waited so long to apply?
Well, not just you, but I mean, in general, why it's taken so long to recognize this change is necessary.
You know, I don't really necessarily know. I think the homes before I owned them were owned by an out-of-town landlord, so they were a business, and so the commercial designation maybe didn't necessarily bother them, and I don't know if they cared about like neighborhood character or preserving affordability. I think they just had the houses until they felt like they were depreciated out, and so they weren't going to pay $500 to, you know, get a permit for it to be rezoned. So I think that sometimes rental houses, the owners aren't necessarily thinking about the, you know, the broader community and how their, you know, homes can impact the people who live there and have the walkability component. I didn't apply sooner because when I bought the homes, I was told that the legal that it would never, you know, there was no way that it could be passed for all these different reasons. But now with the comp plan being relooked at after the 10 years, that has been a change. So previously my understanding was the area said the long-term plan is commercial forever. You know, so before zoning happened in Rapid City, they were built in the 30s, and then something came along to be like, no, we want this to be commercial. And I think just things change with what neighborhoods look like close to the core, what goals are for a city. So maybe Vicki could touch more on that. But
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
typically, just speaking specifically to the question you asked,
Yes.
we see these. We have a lot of residential structures in commercial corridors, and they were built decades ago. They're legal non-conforming. You get those rezones typically when someone comes in because they're going after a loan of some sort to maybe remodel, do some improvements, and the banks won't loan the money until the zoning's in place. That's probably the number one reason why people come to us to rezone after years of having it be legal non-conforming.
And thank you both. Alicia, Vicki, appreciate that. That needs to be said, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that this morning. Thank you.
All right, so the motion on the floor for item number 6 is to approve. Any other comments on it? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries with Alicia abstaining. That takes us to item number 7. Mike?
Good morning, Mike Dugan with Finance. I just have a brief presentation for you this morning regarding amendment number 3 to the project plan for TIF number 84, which is the East Enamosa Street Water Main Extension TIF. This is the current boundary for the district. This will not change. The current zoning, there's a large part that is agricultural, and there's some medium density in residential that makes up what the current zoning is. The future land use is the urban neighborhood, low density neighborhood, and then there's some employment in there off to your far left within that district boundary. Major street plans, so you can see down the middle in the blue, and there is some dash blue of that missing portion of East Enamosa, but East Enamosa is a principal arterial and it runs down the middle of this district boundary. The portion, the road extension we're talking about, the Homestead extension, is in the bottom part, that dash green line to Valley Drive is what we're going to talk about with this amendment today, and some drainage improvements. So just a very brief history. This was originally approved in January of 2021. This was to assess the development of commercial, industrial, and residential property between East North Street and Elkville Road, north of Omaha Street. So there was some water distribution improvements, grading and constructing of a portion of East Enamosa Street, North Valley Drive, and Mickelson. That was the original approval with this district. There has been 2 previous amendments. The first amendment was approved in November of 2023, which it reallocated funds from phase 1, phase 2, and contingency costs. There were some COVID issues. This district was approved right in the kind of the heart of the COVID crisis. So there was some anticipated financing costs and project costs. There was also part of this amendment was to add the city of Rapid City as developer 2 to construct a regional booster station. So there was an additional increase of project costs of 35% to make up for those increase in project costs and the booster station improvement. And then amendment number 2 was approved in September of last year. And what that allowed was, in the original project plan, the grading of North Valley Drive was only the cost up to 300 feet from center line, where they identified that can be for reimbursement. This amendment allowed for the additional costs that were outside of that 300 feet from center line, the grading on North Valley Drive. Important note about that is the costs that originally approved were a little over $1 million. That did not increase the costs. Actually, with the additional grading, the costs were still lower than what that original approval was. So what we're talking about today with amendment number 3, so this is approaching its 5-year maturity as far as by statute for reimbursable expenses. There are some leftover funds, the unused funds. So with that, it was identified a good use of those unused funds was to extend Homestead Street to Valley Drive. And there's some drainage issues in this area as well, and this would be to construct regional drainage improvements to clean that up. So that's the improvements are included in the grading boundary, all utilities along Homestead Street, pavement improvements for Homestead Street, which is asphalt, curb gutter, utility, and street light conduit, and then the construction of that detention pond 221. So there are no new funds in this. There is going to be a reallocation from the developer's interest that was approved with that amendment number 1, the increase. Approximately $400,000, I believe, will be reallocated to get the full funding to be able to make these improvements that are needed within these district boundaries. So this is what the improvements will be within the district boundary. The purple there would be that extension of Homestead Street to Valley Drive that is currently not there. And then to the south, the blue square with the slash lines, that would be the proposed detention pond, and that's where those drainage improvements would take place. So this is just a diagram of where those allocation of those unused costs would be from, which is allowable to reallocate those unused portions. And then, as I stated previously, those financing costs, $459,000 will be reallocated out of those. They're anticipated developers not going to be using that full $9.7 million. This TIF is overperforming, and it's anticipated. I'll get to that in the next slide, but this just shows where those funds are coming from. And with that, these reallocations, this TIF will be maxed. There'll be no other projects that can be identified within this. So this is the updated amortization. So what this is using, so in yellow there is what this was originally the base value of this district at the time of creation, certified by the Department of Revenue. The start balance, that projected valuation, the $212 million is actually what the 2024 value was certified by the county. So that's a known number. The increment of the 2.5 million, that's another, that's what's certified by the county. So that's 2024 pay, 2025. That's a known number. So I just use that as a starting point to calculate the updated amortization. This is deemed to be conservative. Those 2025 numbers should be coming out here shortly. And this district's anticipated, with all the constructions that's take place in the last 12 months, to be over $300 million. So that'll raise that increment greatly. But this is just using what we know with a 3% appreciation going forward. So the developer's portion of this TIF is anticipated to be paid off in 2031, which is year 10 of the TIF. And then developer 2, which is the city of Rapid City, once again using what is known for the starting point in 2025. City of Rapid City is collecting the increment after developer 1 is paid in full. So the city's portion for repayment would start in 2031 with a payoff anticipated in 2034, which would be year 13 of the TIF. And then just our normal ending slide here. So there are 21 active districts currently in this for the city of Rapid City, with a total valuation of the valuation percent of the Rapid City tax bill valuation is just at 2.35%. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
if I could get Mike to go back to the graphic that shows the extension of Homestead Street and the drainage area. There you go. So, we always want to ensure that TIFs are being used to benefit the public. And right now, without the extension of Homestead in place, Diamond Ridge Boulevard, if you could put your cursor on that, it is functioning as a collector street. And that neighborhood has had to accommodate so much traffic because Anamosa does not connect east to west through this area. So folks have figured out how you can drive through, but everyone's hitting Diamond Ridge Boulevard, then heading up north, getting on Anamosa and continuing west. With this connection of Homestead, the collector street, and remember Diamond Ridge is just a local street, that will provide a solid street connection and take so much of that traffic off of in front of those residential lots. The drainage component was well received by the county as well. When we dissolved the TIF committee, we now send every one of our applications in full to the county commission. And I don't know if you attached it or not, but we got the most complimentary letter from the county commission about this street connection and the drainage component, because it benefits their streets too, that we're going to be providing this traffic and then capturing some of the drainage that otherwise may impact their properties downstream.
Thank you. I'm just going to chime in and say the connectivity added by Homestead is super important. I went and drove this recently, and I was impressed as is with the connectivity in an area that's currently being built. A lot of times in Rapid City, we struggle with that. We put, you know, hundreds of new houses in with one road connection and a future. You know, this has the option to get to 44. It has the option to get to east-north, and this Homestead Street extension will just balance out the traffic even more. We're all waiting for that little section of Anamosa, but it's coming. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this amendment to the project plan is very good. I mean, as Vicki just pointed out, and Eric also, the extension of Homestead Street is necessary, and it's nice that it can come through this venue. And I know that the county has talked a lot about the drainage issues south of this area, and they've complained a lot about it, and this is a benefit to the county and all those people who live down below. And the fact that we can use this extra money that's available through this TIF to do some of these projects, I think is amendable. I have one question that has really nothing to do with anything bad. There's a map on the amendment that in the project plan that says something about Summerfield. What is that? One of the maps says Summerfield, the rest of them say Diamond Ridge Boulevard. So I don't know if that's a difference in roads, or there's two roads out there, or what that is. Just curious.
You're talking about on the project plan?
The one we have right here.
Yeah,
up
right
on
in
the
front of us.
screen.
Says Summerfield.
Summerfield is a street east of Diamond Ridge.
Okay.
The labeling, I would assume, isn't showing Diamond Ridge. It would probably, you wouldn't see the lots then.
Yeah. I was just confused because it looked like the same, from the maps, it looked like the same road, and I'm going, that can't be. So, okay, that clarifies it just in my own mind. But anyway, I think this is a good amendment for this TIF. So, thank you.
Eric Heikus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike, can I see your closing slide, please? My motion making needs a little protein here. I'd move approval of the tax increment finance district boundary and subsequent updates. I think it aligns with South Dakota codified law and is a benefit to our community. Help me out with the last half of that if I need it. Thank you.
Maybe the resolution for amendment number 3 to the tax increment district.
Resolution number 3 to this tax increment finance district. Thank you, Eric.
Second.
All right. Eric Heikus made the motion and Jeff seconded the motion. Any discussion on the motion to approve amendment 3? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, that takes us to the end of the agenda today, with the exception of staff and planning commission items. Vicki?
Well, it's that time of year again, guys. Time for election of officers. So we have 3 officer positions that currently are being held. Chair is Eric, vice is Vince, and secretary is Karen. And so today we'll first take nominations and votes on the chair first, vice chair, and then secretary. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right. I've been sitting behind the mic for a while now, so if anybody else wants a chance at it, I say go for it. But past that, I'll leave it up. Karen?
I think Eric.
Whoops.
I think Eric does such a good job. It's hard to follow, you know, with anybody else that I can think of. I mean, I'm sure that we could all probably take that position, but I think because Eric does such a fine job, I'd like to nominate him to continue as president.
I'll second that nomination.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Karen made the motion to nominate me, and Vince seconded that motion. Very nice of y'all. Any other comments or substitute motions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thinking about voting, but I decided not to.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, vice chair. Well, I'd like to nominate Vince again. I think we have a good system going, and he stepped in for me like last week when I was goofing off in Sioux Falls.
Karen,
Oh,
I was on a beach in Alabama,
what? Nah.
but thanks.
All right, but my motion is for Vince for vice chair. All right, Elisa seconded that motion. Any other thoughts or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Oh.
All right, secretary.
Well, I nominate Karen again.
Okay. All right. Vince nominated Karen and Mike Quasney seconded it. Other comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Well, that was easy. The regime maintains the same. Thank you for the vote of confidence. Eric Heikes?
Thank you.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Okay. Can we bring up this site triangle issue? Can we talk some more about that? So, some of us up here, some of us in practice, see ordinances from all over the country. You know, we don't just practice here, we practice in other places too. So we see good and not so good ordinances, and just the two things we talked about, Todd, the two items we talked about, like, 3'6" and less, that's the size of a child. You know what I mean? That is the height of a 8-year-old or a 6-year-old kid. You know what I mean? That really should be shorter. That should be 2'6" or even 2, for example, in that site triangle. What's allowed to be, whether it's a shrub or a fence or a post or whatever it is. So, and the whole notion of a 10-foot, a 10-foot 45-degree angle, I think it might have saved somebody's life in my alley behind my house one day when I pulled out of my alley next to Pam's house there. They put a 45 in their fence, and there was a person walking, and I wasn't really watching. I was maybe putting my coffee lid on or something, and just as I saw them, I put on the brakes, and I would have hit them if I wouldn't have seen that little 45. So when we talk about universal standards on crime prevention through environmental design, those kind of things, generally there are standards. I think we should maybe consider, in this whole process, looking at what some national standards are, and I think we can do a little better with. I'm not saying I'm going to spearhead this thing up. I'm just saying that there are some other documents we could see that would make this a little better. So, and that's where we get into planting design and, that being life safety. So if you're putting stuff out there and you don't know the difference between an American cranberry bush and a dwarf cranberry bush, and you're putting it in that site triangle, you are essentially putting the public in risk. And so if we get into life safety, which we are talking about, I think it deserves, and this is me soapboxing, thank you, I think it deserves a full look at it. So maybe let's take a hard look at our site triangles and how they're justified, maybe how they're classified by neighborhood or that sort of thing. Generally, best practice for us, and Todd, that's what I was referring to, not saying I know what your ordinance is, because sometimes I don't, but 45 feet from each direction where a side street or drive or an access meets a main road, 40 from, you know, the fillet of the curb, 45 feet in each direction, and then diagonally across, in that zone, nothing 30 inches or taller, and everything must be above 10 feet so that you can see through it. So there I'm off my soapbox. There I'm off my soapbox. Thank you. Right. But like we talked about, you know, a stroller, a bike, you know, a bike slowing down, all these things. We're in the world of pedestrian design and not vehicular design more than anything here. So here's a chance to maybe take a hard look at it. So thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Vicky?
we do have a lot of great data and regulations in place already, specific to the classification of the street, the speed of the street, whether it's a controlled intersection or not. But having said that, and site triangle for pedestrians versus vehicles and such, we'll look at that as we're looking at revising the fence regulations, but we're also going to look at that neighborhood character and how do we preserve that as well. So great conversation. We've got some work to do. It'll be a while before we bring something back to you, but expect to see something on that.
All right, Todd?
Yeah, Eric is correct. There are other standards. So AASHTO, when you look at an object height for highway design, like on your vertical curves, it is 30 inches is what they consider an object height for, essentially for the same thing for site triangles. It just happens that the city's ordinance is 42 inches, more geared towards landscaping and correct. Shrubs is one of our biggest issues. Trees and shrubs and stuff in the site triangles is difficult to manage because as they grow, they become a bigger object and a bigger safety issue.
Mike Quasny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, on this, the other thing that happened when we did this 45 degree, we created another problem. And in that area that's cut off now, does that become the neighbor's yard? No, it's not. It belongs to the existing person. So then now is this not being maintained? It creates the problem that we talked about with the fence being back. It creates the same problem. And so that should also be considered as you go forward. And because I have the situation right in my own property where the neighbor doesn't mow his, I end up mowing it to make sure it gets mowed because it affects the look of my yard. And so those are thoughts that have to take place as well. Consideration for the neighbor and what's going to go forward when we make this decision. We created this problem though with that 45, but I didn't know of another solution for it. Trying to work with the existing fence and with what's already been done, not to make it a hardship.
Mr. Chair, we see these options all the time, or these situations in for many different reasons. And a lot of property owners will just put down some landscape tarp and then decorative rock, and then they can walk away from it. It looks good, it preserves the integrity. This is my property, it's bordered in, and yet they don't have to go push their lawnmower down the sidewalk to go mow it, or the weed eater.
Until the weeds come though.
They never come.
It's still, I just concerned, and it creates a problem, and I think this solution created a problem as well, and so that's something that we should look at as we go forward.
All right, Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we're talking about the fence and having that up to the sidewalk, as this one that we just passed was, I think having that 10-foot setback with that strip is crazy. I mean, I don't think that's a solution at all because people don't want to maintain it, and I understand that. But I'd like to see what you bring forward as far as what the fence is going to look like, because I am concerned about everybody blocking themselves off There's a reason, because you have kids and dogs that are expensive, and I understand that too, but I just want to see if there's a way to make that fence more friendly. That's the right term. So anyway, I'm curious to see what you guys are going to bring. Thanks.
Mike?
Okay. I wanted to thank you all for approving the Ronald McDonald House, and I think it'll be a great addition to our community, and I think I look forward to it getting, we should have dirt moving this week, and so I look
All right.
forward to it being a great addition to our community.
Thanks, Mike, for your work on that. Vince?
I agree. Thanks, Mike. And, you know, I had some friends who've had to use a Ronald McDonald House, and these were not high-income people who were caught in a situation where a child was born early and they had to go to another city. So there's a lot of help that this Ronald McDonald House can provide our citizens, and from now and into the future. So thanks again for all the work.
All right, anything else from the commission? Okay. Oh, sorry, Jeff.
I just wanted to offer accolades to the staff on this week's event, Coffee with a Planner. Alicia and I and Erica attended. 3 great presentations. Kip did one on the study being done on the relocation of the switchyard. It was picked up by the local media, so Kip's kind of a real popular guy these days. Jessica did an outstanding job. Multifamily dwelling issues that are coming forward. And Chip, although he's left, Chip and Eric did one on fire prevention, wildland fire encroachment prevention. Very well done. I didn't have any coffee, but I did have a bagel, and they were delicious. So thank you so much.
Alicia?
Just one more thank you, and I appreciate everyone who helped me with the figuring out my property, whether it was what to do with it and thinking about the comp plan. So I feel like a lot of people worked on it for 3 small homes in Rapid City. So Tanner, Jessica, and Cassie, and I'm sure Vicky, Marlo, all of you. So yeah, thank you for helping me through that, and thank you for approving it.
All right. Karen?
No one else? No, that's second it.
Okay. Karen made the motion to adjourn. Vince seconded it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. I have sat in for you before. Just
Oh, I know.